This is Michael Brown speaking. How can I help you?
Yeah, this is Krimes. I'm leaving work to head to the house.
What's your name again, sir?
Krimes. Krimes.
All right, I got you, man.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Yep. Me and my mother lived above my grandfather's machine shop. And when she was at work, I would always go downstairs.
Yeah, the smell of this place. This is like a very distinct smell. So every time I smell it, it's like, oh yeah, I'm home. It's a good grease smell. The sandblaster, I used to play with that thing all the time when I was little. So you like put your arms in it, feels like you become this like machine and your hands are in here. The phone that they can never find. People call here all the time and they never answer. I don't even know what that is. But I always come through and raid everything and steal the materials and turn them into my art projects. Like, these things are really elegant. Which is weird to say about this dirty shit. When I would read Foucault's Discipline and Punish, there was an image in there of this tree, and it was all contorted, and there was a post that was stuck in the ground, and they tied it around this contorted part of the tree to try and straighten it. You know, this one's straight. That's how it's supposed to look. These remind me of that contorted tree. That's what happens when there's too much compression. You bend the valves, it freezes up the head, completely shuts down the entire engine of the car, destroys it. All from this little thing. But they're beautiful like that. Yeah, I'll probably end up making something with these. I think we found some new materials.
Growing up, I didn't actually understand what an artist was. I was always kind of like a maker. There was these really interesting objects that I connected with. Machine equipment and cardboard boxes piled up in the corner. And I would always make these three-dimensional theatrical structures out of cardboard, just design little scenes and tape them together. Got lost in making these things all day. The only time I felt comfortable was when I was actually making work. I always did really well in my art classes, and I wanted to go to art school. But I don't ever recall in my life anyone being like, oh, this is something you're really good at, you should explore this. There was never really much direction. I was kind of left to my own devices most of my life. I noticed early on, coming through school, that I was different from a lot of my friends. Most of the kids had two parents. They had houses and cars and, you know, nicer things. My mother had me when she was 16. It was basically a child raising a child. We didn't even have a kitchen. We didn't have a refrigerator. Our beds were in the same room. My mother had to work all day, every day. And my biological father was never there. The guy who raised me was Tom Adams.
He actually was there at the hospital, but he wasn't in the dental room. But yeah, he came in right away and held him, and oh, he loved him. Yeah, and nobody ever loved Jesse like he did.
I was very close to him. I didn't know that he wasn't my father until I was about 9 or 10 years old. At that point in time, his relationship with my mother was going south because he was drinking more and more, and he was beginning to use heroin. When I was 16 years old, he was in, I think, a drug rehabilitation center, and he just walked out the door one day and went and hung himself in the woods. And, you know, that was kind of, that was intense. So, yeah, that was the point in time when I started kind of acting out. I got involved in drinking and partying. I started selling weed and then selling cocaine at parties. So it was no secret I was a train wreck. Getting arrested all the time for public drunkenness and underage drinking. I was so reckless. I really didn't give a shit about myself. I didn't care if I lived. I didn't care. I had full scholarships to Temple University, Tyler School of Art. But I ended up getting in trouble there. I lost all my scholarships. I got kicked out of school and went to prison for possession with intent. And that was my first time ever being in prison. And I served a 1.5 year state sentence. When I came home, I was trying to work and go to school. And the stress of that began to wear on me. So I went back to what I knew, and I began selling cocaine again. It was a Friday night.
In February of 2009.
I immediately just turned and ran. They kicked in the door. I admitted everything that was mine. I showed them where the drugs were, was honest about everything, and just sat there while they went through the house. You know, they find 147 grams of cocaine. But when I refused to cooperate and snitch on other people, they increased my drug weights from 147 grams up to 50 kilos, based off of other people's statements. And they're like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I got 40 grams from him yesterday, and then they charge you with that. This is a typical practice that happens in the federal system.
And they actually called me and said if he doesn't tell on these people, we're gonna file federal charges. And I said, go for it. I said, you can file whatever federal charges you want. I'd rather have my son in jail than dead.
It was pre-sentence. I'm presumably innocent, and they had me in solitary confinement.
It was 23-in-1 lockdown, like dirt floors. The sinks are busted off the wall, the toilets leak and don't work. There's no sunlight, you get no outside recreation.
And you get thoughts of suicide.
I was basically losing my mind.
Art is what I know, so the whole time I was making artwork to survive.
I worked on the Purgatory series the entire time I was in pre-sentencing. I remember from when I was a kid playing with silly putty that I could put it onto a newspaper and pull the ink off of it, and it would leave that inverse image on there. And I began cutting portraits of people who were accused of committing crimes in the paper out. Using the inner connector of a AAA battery that I sharpened on the floor and used as a kind of cutting device. And I would carve prison-issued bars of soap into little slivers. And then by making the surface wet and pressing the portrait on top of the soap, it would leave the inverse image of the face. In order for me to send these pieces of soaps out, I needed to figure out a way to house them so that they wouldn't break. And that's when I thought of the prison playing cards. I began collecting the cards and cutting the faces off of face cards. And after I would get so many cards, I would make these card structures and mail out 2 in an envelope. And I made hundreds of them. I would work roughly 12 hours a day. This process kept me sane because really I never knew if I would even make it out of there. We went to sentencing, and that was a major moment for me. Just walking into that courtroom, as you feel the power. The United States of America versus Jesse Krimes. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. All of these things that I viewed as not that serious became very serious at that moment. I'm never doing anything to put myself in this situation again. I ended up being found guilty of 500 grams of powder cocaine. So instead of 100 months, the judge gave me a 70-month federal sentence. The judge recommends that I get sent to a low-security facility, but he also said that, you know, if I ever come back in front of another judge again, that he has a permanent residence for me in the BOP. So basically, if I get in trouble again, I have a life sentence. But the one thing that really stood out to me was when he said, earlier today, someone came before me who had a similar criminal history with the exact same offense, and I just gave that person 20 years. But I see value in you. In the moment, I was just like, thank fucking God. But then, like, afterwards, I was like, well, why? I was with the guy in the holding cell before I went in for my sentencing. And it was a black guy. It seemed to me that race was the main driving factor in that decision. Honestly, it made me angry. The Bureau of Prisons ignored the judge's recommendation. They didn't send me to a low security facility. They sent me to a medium security facility as far away from home as possible, Butner FCI 2 in North Carolina. It's full of every gang that you can imagine. So like the Hells Angels are there, the Italian Mafia is there, the Russian Mafia, Black Guerrilla family, Paisas, Serenos, Latin Kings, you name it. Every major criminal organization in the world is housed there. Going in there, I was terrified. I walked into the cafeteria, and it's like all the whites sitting here, all the blacks and all the Spanish, and everyone was segregated. There was like no racial mixing at all. Within the first couple weeks, there was this huge war that almost jumped off between the whites and the blacks. The guys handed me shanks. I took them, but I just threw them away in the trash can. Because there's no way I was gonna go out there and stab anybody. I mean, that would have given me a life sentence. That division is really fostered by the prison system so that people don't unify and rise up against the guards and the staff. You fear for your life on a day-to-day basis. That was my introduction to the federal prison system. So I found out that I was having a son the week before I got indicted. Whether me and her worked out or not, there's no way that I'm not going to be there for my kid. There was a lot of absence in my life, and then I basically did the same thing to my kid. I know how damaging that was for me. I knew that I needed to do what I had to do to make it out of prison so that I could come home and be a present father. I felt like I was at war. I had to get out intact. I just stayed in the cell and made drawings as a way to disconnect from everything that's going on around me. I wasn't that skilled at drawing before I went in. It was just something I learned. I began using graphite and a number 2 pencil to do recreations of masterworks. But I would transfer the heads of offenders over top of the religious icons. I wanted to decontextualize the way that we view who is an offender and who isn't. And so I also began transferring images of celebrities and politicians based on the premise that we're all some type of offender. It's just a matter of whether you've been caught or not. Over time of making the work, people would come to the cell and want to talk and want to see what I was doing. So they're like, oh, you're an artist. Can you draw? Can you do portraits? So I just did one real quick off of someone's ID, and everyone was really impressed. So, you know, then I had tons of people coming to the cell to get portraits and buy portraits. The work served as this medium of communication that allowed me to connect with people past that whole prison persona.
Is it a portrait of you put in Philly? Oh shit!
Got me, kid. It got me.
They put a portrait of Connor in Philadelphia. Over there. And me right next to you.
I always wonder what this feeling was to walk into prison and not be an inmate.
Yeah.
Here it goes.
I had the codes for this place. I first met O in Kano when I got transferred to Farrington, New Jersey, which has a drug program. This is Al Capone's cell.
So I basically used the drug program to get me back closer to home.
Before I met Jesse, I want to say it had to be about 10 years. I was there for a conspiracy to distribute powder cocaine. In Shawshank Redemption, I guess I was like the Morgan Freeman of the art room. That's who I was. I was the guy who knew how to get the move in the environment because I was there so long. One day I walked in to go start on one of my paintings and he was sitting there. And I looked and I said, why is this guy sitting in front of my painting? And I said, if he's sitting in front of my painting and he's looking at it, then he's got to be an artist.
Everything that personally identified.
What are the odds of me bumping in to somebody who's a conceptual artist in a federal prison? I guarantee you, if there's another conceptualist in there, he might not even know he's a conceptualist.
Oh, Picasso's. You love, what Picasso you don't like?
And he likes
Lot.
Matisse.
I love Matisse. I like Matisse
God.
better than
I
Picasso.
love Matisse.
Matisse is terrible.
What?
He's like
Matisse?
he's one of the worst artists.
Ladies
of all
and gentlemen,
Matisse?
excuse that sacrilege.
Matisse and
I'm so
I've
tired
distanced
of him. He's
myself
like a
from that.
Renoir.
Monet.
No,
Renoir
what?
and
Totally
Matisse.
different.
I'm like,
No.
ugh.
I like Matisse.
No. I wish.
This was every
so
day
you
in
see-
the art room. This.
That's what we do inside. We do the same
Every
thing.
day.
When I got there, I went straight to the art room because I wanted to see who's making what, if I could get a space. So I just spoke to the guards and they're like, oh, you need to talk to O.
So we started talking and the conversation went from which prison did you come from? What did they have there? Did they let you have colored pencils? Did you have this? Did you have that? What kind of paint did you have? And I knew a lot of artists he didn't know and he knew a lot that I didn't know. So we would feed off each other. God puts people in your life. I had nobody else to talk to about art, you know? There's not a lot of people in there that are thinking about art on that level.
When you're in that atmosphere, you don't want to open yourself entirely to people. But O lived in my unit. So it was like, oh, we got a new artist. You're gonna like him. So when I met Jesse, we talked about art and I seen what he had to offer. It was different than other artists I had met. And we just like hit it off from like the beginning.
Artists are definitely treated differently in prison. You're a highly valued member of the community because you provide something real that humanizes people and connects people to their families and makes people feel valuable.
That's a commodity. You sell it, you know what I'm saying? So you can eat, you will never go hungry. Out here, artists go hungry.
O did really well in there, and Kano, you know, they would paint a lot of portraits and they would do a lot of work that people would buy, and that's how they survived. That's how they bought their materials to make the other work.
Because these guys were really advanced in terms of the work that they were making. They were doing beautiful abstractions and experimenting with different techniques and styles.
To me and Jesse and Kano, doing portraits is like a card trick. We were past that. We were looking for something deeper.
When I was in Farrington, I had a larger space to work in. So that allowed me to change the scale of my project. For the last 3 years of my sentence, I created Apocalyptine 1638-9067. The title comes from the origin of the word apocalypse, which means to uncover and reveal, in combination with my Federal Bureau of Prisons identification number. I began to think about building a sort of time machine, one made of images sewn together, blended, embedded. A chance to travel outside of my container, visiting the future that already exists, while avoiding the present circumstances of my condition.
He says, I'm gonna take a sheet and I'm gonna transfer an image with styling gel, and I'm gonna do a big one, right? And I'm gonna do heaven, earth, hell, and I was like, okay, I get you. Little of, what's the guy's name?
Bosch. if I wanted to do a kind of vertical triptych. I decided to use the federal prison bed sheets as a canvas. So I would do a bunch of work for other people, portraits and tattoo work, and then they would pay me in books of stamps, which is roughly $7 in prison currency. And then I would pay a friend of mine who was working in the laundry. He would give me 2 sheets. The sheet itself is produced in the prison using prison labor. They pay them like 40 cents an hour, and they're making millions of dollars. So the sheet that's produced by the incarcerated person is then used to literally cover and hide his body while he sleeps. So stripping their sheets and, defacing them, destroying them, it was like a nice form of resistance.
When I saw that art had a fuck you element to the system, I was on board. I was like, great, I want to be part of that.
I wasn't buying paint. I wasn't buying brushes. I didn't need canvas. I was stealing everything from the prison on purpose.
Procurement of all the elements of his piece, it takes an army, you know what I mean? It's not like out here, you need it, you go get it. In there, getting the sheets, you can go to the hole. Getting the newspaper is a mission. I mean, the styling gel was just as important as the paper. That's how he did the transfers. He tried to buy a case of it, and they were like, what are you doing with all this styling gel? And they gave him 2 or 3. They were like, that's all you're getting. I would go to the commissary and get him styling gel, and they would look at me like, the fuck are you getting styling gel for? You're bald. The staff would come sit and watch him and be like, cool. One time they said something, that's not a bed sheet that he's doing. I said, no, that's a canvas.
This is considered contraband, so it could have gotten me time in solitary. If my points go up, I could have been sent to a penitentiary. That was the least of my worries. I just didn't want to lose the work.
I didn't know exactly what Jesse was up to, but I never knew that he was going to make this colossal thing. He would complete a panel, and it was kind of interesting the way he thought about it way before, how to unite these things. And he was doing them, and he already had it sketched out in his mind what it was going to be.
At the time, I couldn't have explained to you why I was doing it. It was an intuitive way to work through these concepts that I'm still figuring out. What it means to be good and what it means to be bad. And I was reading these philosophical texts. The Divine Comedy, The Kingdom and the Glory, The Wretched of the Earth, Bordeaux's Distinction, Hegel. Reading these philosophical texts was a way to kind of decode these things to me and work through some of the visual imagery that was developing intuitively. The New York Times served as my window onto the world. That's why I was selecting imagery out of there. Images out of the travel section, man-made disasters, natural disasters. This was the school shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary. This is a father carrying his child after a bomb went off, and she was injured by shrapnel. All of the hell panels are made from commercial advertisements. They would have articles exposing the factory fires in Bangladesh where all of the workers were dying in these apparel fires. And it's H&M, it's Ralph Lauren. And then there are full-page advertisements for an H&M, Ralph Lauren. The figures came out of Foucault's Discipline and Punish.
where he talks about the corporal body. And they're all ballerina figures. They had this whole idea of this perfect human body, the perfection of movement. It's this completely artificial thing that we idealize and aspire to. Each one of these would take about a month. I would work on them in the cell, roughly probably 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's a lot of hours. Making this was very transcendental, and I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. So using that material to have it confiscated was my biggest fear. So I ordered one canvas out of Blick catalog, and when it came in the mail, I just took it off of the roll and gave the canvas to Jared, and I put my sheets on the roll and then put all the labels, the Blick labels and the red tape back on it so it looked like it was a linen canvas that it was ordered through the appropriate channels. And every piece that I finished, it got boxed up and shipped out that day so that I could minimize the chance of it being confiscated.
I had a rapport with the mail people and like, hey, what's up, guys? And I'd be like, how many boxes you got? 5, 6 boxes. I'd put his stuff on the top, and I would always make sure that it went out.
It kind of like took the place of my body in a way. So when I was making it and sending it out, it was almost like sending out pieces of myself outside of the prison walls. Realizing that I was about to be released, I remember rushing to finish the last section, which was the heaven section. And I ended up finishing the final panel and sending it out 3 months before I was released. That's when I had to start making plans as best I could, like what am I gonna do when I come home? Who am I living with? And do I have a job? I had foolish delusions of grandeur that I was just gonna come home and create artwork, have serious shows. Like, immediately. Not immediately, but that was the vision that I had for my life. There's still a million tripwires that would send me right back into prison. But I knew that I wouldn't put myself in a position to be rearrested or to get that life sentence. September 12th of 2013, I was released into the halfway house. Technically, by BOP standards, I'm still incarcerated. But the first time I was able to come up here and actually drive on the highway, all of that stress and bullshit of being in prison and then coming home, and you're happy to be home, but you're still surrounded by people, so you're still performing. And being in the car was the first time I was actually by myself. It was early in the morning, there wasn't a lot of traffic. It was the most liberating feeling. I think I was singing at the top of my lungs, and I never sang. Love you.
Have a good weekend.
These are the two walls. This is east and west.
My adjustment is probably pretty atypical. I had a transitional job waiting for me as soon as I came home with the Mural Arts Restorative Justice Program. The director of the program, Robin Boosman, came into Farrington.
So he was in the art studio and he was showing me a piece of this big work that he had done on sheets. But he couldn't show me the whole thing because it was kind of hush-hush and it was on prison property. And I said to him, you know, when you get out, we can probably get you into our mural arts program where we hire people to work 4 to 6 months part-time.
We have pre-mixed.
That's where I met Jesse. Like a month after me working there, then he came along to Mural Arts. We was working together ever since. We getting a reputation for being like a team that don't play when it comes to installing and stuff. So I get dedicated. We work on weekends, days of holidays, all that.
You see that, Craig? They don't even fit together. They're not cut straight. Craig often calls me Captain America and calls himself Iron Man.
You should, when you go make the lines, you should just put it there, and that's gotta be touch-up area.
Put our lines there and get them as close. And then we argue, and I say, no, I'm more like Iron Man because he's much more abrasive, matter of fact, he's kind of a dick. This is gonna be a nightmare. Craig would be more like Thor, I think, or the Incredible Hulk. So he's quiet, reserved, and then he turns into beast mode.
I'm a visual artist, I paint. It started like when I was very young. I was around 7. My childhood was like the hood, street life, foster homes and stuff, you know what I mean? So then once I started running away from them, it was like the streets became like your family. I was about 20 when I first went to jail. I was like 26 or so when I went upstate. Jesse had a lot of drugs, more than what I had, and I did more time than he did. I got a 5 to 10, in which I did 7. We talked about that, but we don't go heavy into it. He know and we know. We just know. It's just the reality of it, you know what I'm saying? When I first walked in, it was just all you seen was like mad black people. And I was thinking like, damn, they locking up a lot of black people. And there's one jail. So just imagine all the jails in Pennsylvania. Then you got jails all over the United States. One day I went to the yard and the wall's like real big, you know what I'm saying? When the sun set the horizon, you can't see it. So the wall kind of killed my spirit. And I like ain't go out for a year. Cause I had nothing. 0 money on the books, 0 visits. And being like in the foster homes and stuff, I never had no real families. You just ain't had that support. And I would just watch the block and I would just watch how everybody was moving, cause it's like a machine. It's a dark machine too. That's why the art became important, because it was like a focus and it was like an escape. I did it all day, every day. The goal was learn art, do art, get out of the street life, get out of the prison life.
I think the best way to start is to just put the whole top row in, and we'll go 13 down to 1.
Okay.
Yeah, they're numbered funny.
Okay.
The system I developed was like in the process, so.
How many times have you put this all together? Not very many, right?
No, I've laid it out on the floor a lot.
Yeah.
Well, this is high for me. I'm sure that's high for you.
Well, I was actually on like a 40-foot scaffolding just the other day installing a mural, so this is kind of what I do every day.
Is that what the mural project?
Yeah.
Wow.
You can see marks from the tiles on the desk that I worked on. It's almost like these little crosshairs that I always found really interesting because it was like the trace of the actual prison. I used the size of that desk as kind of my guideline. Coming home without this body of work and without having something to kind of represent my experience, I mean, I wouldn't be able to really talk about it in the way that I'm able to talk about it now. I think that's pretty good. I'm actually surprised with how well it lined up and connected versus what I thought it was going to do. I thought it would be a little bit more disconnected in the horizon line. I'm really happy about it. This is my first solo exhibition of my work ever. So I'm really proud to have it, especially in the state that had me imprisoned. So that feels really good to have it at a major university in the same state.
State university, you know.
Yes.
So that.
I like that. It kind of let me know that I was able to accomplish something. So what do you think we're gonna catch over here?
I hope we don't catch a big catfish like last time.
That was a massive catfish, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We'll have to call Grandma over to get it off if you get one like that.
Yeah. See it for fishing rod?
Oh, look, you can see the whole way to the bottom.
Yeah, there's little fish. That's where we're gonna go. Right there. Where I want.
He has no idea I was in prison.
Is it on?
Almost. Whoa! You got a worm in the face. His mother brought him in to see me when he was first born when I was in Dauphin County, and that was the only time I ever saw him while I was incarcerated.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, you can see him. Hold on. I saw him again for the first time when I was in the halfway house.
Yeah.
What kind of fish is that? I got a pass to go to the zoo to meet him. Interesting place to meet your son for the first time.
We got one.
Walking around a bunch of caged animals
There he is.
after coming home from prison.
All right.
He wants like, get out of me!
I remember not knowing how to treat him.
You want to throw him back?
Yeah.
He very immediately felt like my son, but also felt like someone else's kid.
Yes, this is where big fish are.
His reaction was like at first a little shy and like kind of clung to mom, like when we first met outside of the zoo.
Bleeding!
He'll be okay. It's important that he knows that I'm there now. Just showing up and being there as much as I can. wasn't allowed to go outside at all.
Lights.
Nothing. No sunlight, no fresh
No
air,
sunlight,
nothing.
nothing.
For a year. This work was very meditative, so it allowed me to disconnect from all of that kind of, that dangerous environment. It had that element of game and chance, and the soap has this latent kind of language of purity and sanitization and washing oneself of one's sins. It's pretty amazing to think that I was just in prison a little over a year ago. It's nice to have this work that was hidden and created in solitary confinement, having a chance to speak. But it feels very, very empowering to be here. I had to write a letter to my probation officer to go to Paris. And he told me he supports me going, but he had to get approval from his boss, and then they had to go in front of a United States judge to get approval for me to leave the country. You know, I'm going home tomorrow, and as of right now, I don't have a job waiting for me. So it's a little bittersweet in the sense that, you know, this is a great opportunity, but now I have to kind of go back to reality after being here and try to find work. You can tell how old these paints are because they don't actually come out of the tube. But I think the one thing you learn in prison is to not waste your materials. So I've had most of these paints since before prison. I haven't really bought any new materials. Or I try to buy the least amount of new materials as possible, so I just use the old crappy paint that I have and try to make it stretch. The deck's stacked against you when you come home, and there are days when I feel depressed. Being out here and not having money, it's kind of like still being in prison. Your liberty and your freedom is dependent upon money in a lot of ways. I moved in with a friend of mine. I'm not paying rent right now until I figure out what I'm gonna do. Since working with mural arts was temporary, I need to find a job. I've applied for a lot of positions and I've gotten a lot of interest. However, my record stops me from getting a lot of jobs that I think I'm well suited for. So I'm free, but I'm not really free in the sense that other people are. They still have their hooks in you. So even right now, I'm on supervision. So there's this kind of tension that you always feel where the tiniest little thing can send you back to prison. There's this looming thing over you. I started drinking. I started smoking cigarettes again. It's easy to fall back into old behaviors. No, thank you. I can feel myself getting agitated and more reckless. And I can feel that kind of tension creeping back in that existed before I went to prison.
I was trying my best to get lead artist positions, apply for fellowships, get grants, and nothing was really panning out, and so it was just a real constant struggle. I felt really worn down. One night I ended up going out in Lancaster with a friend, got pretty drunk. And when I walked outside, there was a cop standing out there, and he said that I stumbled, and he arrested me for public drunkenness. It felt like the thousands of nightmares that I've had since I've come home from prison, where I wake up in a jail cell. It felt like everything was lost. First on my mind was just how royally I fucked up with my son. How, if they violate me and I don't get to see him this weekend, that I've already established a relationship with him. And that now, this feels like an insane betrayal.
Particularly after going through what I went through. These aren't things that you're just magically fixed. These are things that are a part of you forever.
Waking up in the jail, I didn't have the expectation that I was going to get off. It's everything that I had been working towards for years. I was about to just vanish. I was violated and going back to prison. Before I could even call my probation officer, he called me. Instead of violating me, he ended up recommending that I go to counseling. The only other person that I told was Craig.
We was going out after that. He's like, I gotta chill because I got locked up. And I was like, all right, word. And I just be supportive of it. Like, you got through that shit, you know what I'm saying? So let's not fuck up again, because if you do, it'll prove whoever trying to take you down right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we would go back to work. And it was just art. It's always art.
You know, we just had a conversation where it was like, we got too much good shit going on to throw it away for this kind of stuff. Get back in shape.
meet these guys?
Jesse, nice to meet you.
These are the guys from Philly Voice.
Okay. So yeah, we were thinking that we would do the portrait shot first.
You want to maybe smile a little bit? Awesome.
So then this exhibit, did the gallery come to you for this?
No, it was a mutual thing. So the curator, Julie Courtney, we had been planning to do a show, but we didn't have a place to do one yet. And she went out to lunch with someone from here, and they were very open to having her come in and curate the show here.
Do you think your life would have shaped up this way had you not gone to prison? Like, do you look back on that and think maybe that was like a meant-to-be kind of situation?
I do, actually. Prison really focused me. I think it really made me angry and kind of resentful while I was in there. But rather than like get depressed and then get down on myself, I used that as like fuel and this unending source of drive and energy to make more work. Because I saw the power and kind of self-worth that it was giving to me. Like the level of drive that instilled in me is just, it's nonstop. So eventually I feel like I would like to relax a little, but you know, I feel a tremendous social weight has been placed on me.
Hey, how are you?
You know, I still have tons of friends who are in there.
Yeah, for the first year pre-sentence.
So maybe one day I'll slow down and relax a little, but right now it's just nonstop.
Documentary will explore the trauma to prison pipeline, the effects of trauma on the brain, restorative justice, and reentry. Storytelling can create empathy, and empathy can move people to act. My project will allow an audience to know and hopefully empathize with those of us who have made tragic mistakes.
One of the things that really burned itself into my brain when I was incarcerated was having a woman's body going through the system and losing authorship, losing authority over that body. And so I just was really interested in this idea of the dehumanization of the body as a result of incarceration.
The first project is the inmate activity book. It started out as like a joke. It was a friend of mine who was doing Fed time, and so I was sending him funny drawings, basically, is how it started. We printed a couple editions, and like the feds like confiscated whole runs of this book. Okay, so she likes it. So,
while I was in grad school in 2012, I was wrongfully incarcerated. I came up with this little idea of bringing my experience to the space that I was in.
We provided formerly incarcerated artists from different disciplines, $20,000 a piece, 10 for your pocket, 10 for your project, to create like art and provide the opportunity to put their talent out there to show the world his talent.
It's work that needs to be in MoMA. It's work that needs to be in the Whitney. And it's work that no one knows about.
Okay. I just learned about
So I started getting a couple bigger projects. I was the lead artist on the Voices project, which was a big project here in Philadelphia through the Mural Arts program. That was definitely the biggest check that I've gotten to lead a project. And then I found out that I got selected for the Rauschenberg Fellowship. And then the Art for Justice grant was really the thing that solidly put me back up on my feet. So I was feeling much more financially secure. I mean, for the first time since I've been home. This is a first edition Foucault, Discipline and Punish. But the thing that's really interesting about it, it's actually called, well, I'll remember it, but it's basically Surveillance and Punish, right? And so I was wondering, like, what happened in the translation where they switched to discipline, because it's a very different connotation.
I bet you my shoes are gonna smell like cow poop. I hate cow poop.
You probably already smell like poop.
I do not smell like poop.
When's the last time you showered?
Not yesterday, but the day before yesterday.
Okay, that's pretty good.
I bet you the police are gonna catch us.
You think? I feel great about being a father. Yeah, but you know, I still wish I could do more. We should transfer this on. I want to show you how to do a transfer. With hand sanitizer. Like I'm still in Philadelphia. He still lives in Lancaster. I only see him every other weekend. And so there's parts of that that's like, I don't know. I don't know how you fix that. I definitely don't want to move back to Lancaster. So that's not the best idea. I don't think that would be good for anyone. So then I'd be there more, but I'd be miserable. I like that technique. Oh, look, the little smoke piece didn't transfer.
Yeah, some of it did.
Oh, yeah, some of it did.
And the spots look cool because then it's like a woodpecker pecked it. Like
Yeah.
a bird.
I wonder if I can come back at night and like rip that out of the roots. You gotta see what's under there. It's interesting that some of the branches are like this and then some of them are roots. The fact that you can't tell the difference between opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Whether it's a branch or it's a root system, like either way, it's still like an interconnected system. And so like there is no top or bottom. Like it's basically what the whole idea of the show is about. I wasn't prepared for how difficult it was going to be taken seriously as an artist versus just viewed as a prison artist. I mean, this guy needs some love anyway. I think in 2016, I had went up to New York to show Apocalyptine at the United Nations.
There you go. Flow of real life. Go ahead.
And one day, me and Julie Courtney walked to Chelsea because we wanted to see the shows. And Julie just walked into a gallery and she came back out and she's like, "Oh, you really need to come in here. You need to meet Barry. He owns the gallery. He's interested to meet you." And then after talking, showing him my work, he took me on as the first artist that he's represented as a gallery. I feel like I've been able to use my privilege, my education, and my networks to build something that is sustainable. But the thing that's kind of frustrating to me is that people who have been in prison, who are super exceptionally talented artists, are not getting projects, not getting platforms in the top tier contemporary art sphere. And I mean, it's slowly starting to happen, but they're missing the value that someone who has been through this experience can contribute. 1 in 3 people has a criminal record, and so that is a clear signal to me that there is a whole pool of wasted talent, not just in the prison system, but people who have since come home.
There's so much against you, and I'm seeing more and more now how difficult things are. It's always like a challenge every day.
In prison, you're sought after, you know what I mean? Here, it's a dime a dozen, you know what I mean? And that's the sad truth. But we're trying to prosper, and we're not going back. At least we're gonna do everything in our power not to.
Just gonna keep making art. I mean, as frustrating as it is not to sell a lot of paintings, you gotta block that out. So the next step for me is just to keep painting.
Actually, today, today makes 5 years since I was released from prison. So I've now officially been home longer than I've been in. And my exhibition's opening tomorrow, the day after I came home. It's all good shit. That's hard to open. Early celebration, calming mechanism, a lot of things. There were a couple people who said they couldn't make it.
Like who?
O. So O said the hurricane messed up all of his travel stuff. It was all kind of last minute anyway. He lives in South Carolina. It's a pretty big ask to have someone come up to New York for a night to see a show. What's up? How you doing?
Ton more fruits.
Thank you for coming.
What up? What's up, baby? How you feeling?
What's going on? I'm good. Yeah.
Go out, bring with you.
See, somehow.
I got you.
Somehow I knew he was gonna be here. I got the text and I was like, that shit's fake.
What's up,
You can't bullshit me.
I know. I tried. I thought I would get you.
I was like, where the fuck?
You ain't see when I first came in.
Yeah, I did.
Come get a drink.
Late though, late.
It was a nice turnout and everything.
It was great, man.
It's
it
better
was
than
packed.
I ain't know this popping more than that other joint.
Yeah, for sure.
So the glass is actually blown into those structures, right?
Yeah.
And then these are...
That's actually
plexi.
plastic.
Yeah?
So those are
It's like
digital.
your transfer, like your...
Kind of, yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Are you happy with it?
I am. I'm incredibly happy with it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So these are all natural roots, and then I got the very cliched artificial plants and attached them on and melted the plastic and formed it and painted it so they all look as seamless as possible.
It's a day, son.
Yeah? Yeah.
Feeling this big time. You're feeling this big time, kid. Got the flowers going on. You know what
I thought you'd like the flowers. I was like, this is kind of... I remember when we were talking shit the one day. You're like, sometimes motherfucker just wants to paint flowers.
Oh.
I was like, yeah. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Glad you killed it.
I need this picture too.
I'm not ashamed about being in prison at all. I don't think anyone should be. You know, I made a mistake. I'm not a bad person. That doesn't make you a bad person. Everyone likes to just give these simple narratives and classifications because it's safe. But people are complicated and more nuanced than that. Some of them are probably living, so you shouldn't break them off.
Well, this one's dead. Can I break this?
No.
Come on!
No. No breaking trees. I feel pretty good. But at the same time, it's bittersweet. Because, you know, I'm here, but yet I think about a lot of the people who are still in prison, who aren't going home, at least not anytime soon.